Ever since the Canon C400 was announced, I felt like this is the perfect workhorse camera for me. I already loved the Canon C70 as well as the Canon C300 Mark III, but both were missing some things. Things the Canon C400 totally nailed. So naturally I hit up my local camera store and picked up Canon newest hotcake. So now, ever since it showed up on my YouTube channel, I was being bombarded by comments about if I added the camera to my roster, if I filmed this on a Canon C400, and how I liked Canon's newest cinema camera. So in this video, I want to answer all your questions about the Canon C400, if I kept it, and if I didn't. Spoiler alert, I didn't. Why not? So let's have a chill conversation about camera gear, just like the good old days. And in this video, I just want to talk to you about the Canon C400, what I liked and why I eventually returned it, what I'm using now, and also maybe consider this my Canon C400 review. It's not gonna be a full review, it's literally gonna be a chill conversation between me and you guys about the Canon C400. Because I haven't used it enough to actually do it justice. So number one, to get this out of the way, I love the Canon C400 and my reasons for returning it are my reasons alone, and it doesn't apply to a lot of other people. It's not like, oh, the image quality wasn't on par so I had to return it, or this thing was a deal breaker, yada yada yada. It's more about my circumstances, and my circumstances have changed, and therefore it's not the perfect camera for me right now, but it would be in another life or a couple years ago. Anyway, let's get into it. So since I don't want to waste your time, let's get right into why I returned it. I love the Canon C400. It's nearly a perfect camera for me, but I'm mostly shooting YouTube right now. I'm filming this video on the Canon R5C. I also dabbled with the C80, which I really love. Initially, I really felt like the Canon C80 is not what I'm looking for because I like a complete cinema camera. And the Canon C400 is that. It has a full frame RF sensor with all the bells and whistles and all the I/O that I could possibly want, as well as native VMON support. The problem I had with it, it's just too big. So as you've seen in the intro and some of my most recent videos, I like to mount the camera to weird places, put it in a fridge or mount it onto a frying pan, or just have the flexibility of filming myself in different kind of situations as well as locations. And the Canon C400 is quite chunky for this. Using it on a couple of shoots, I also felt it was heavier than I thought it would be, especially when you rig it out with a V-mount battery as well as a monitor and all the bells and whistles, that it does become quite heavy, which again is fine, but if I'm just solo filmmaking and just filming myself out on location, this is not necessarily what I just, carry around with me all the time. Another thing to consider was the price point, because now that I'm mostly doing YouTube and I hardly do any client work, is it really worth it to spend upwards of $6,000 or $8,000 or $9,000 or whatever it is right now on a camera just to film myself if I have a camera that is perfectly capable of doing that? So I also looked at a Canon C80, and that I believe is $2,000 cheaper than the Canon C400. And it virtually does the exact same thing. It has the same sensor, it has the same image quality, it has all the functions that the Canon C400 has, except for the high frame rate RAW shooting, which I rarely ever did. So overall, I felt like spending that $2,000 more for a different, not necessarily better form factor, depending on what you shoot. If I were to shoot commercials and more commercial work in general, even documentaries, then I would definitely prefer the Canon C400 over the C80. But for my purposes, the Canon C80 actually did have a lot of advantages over the Canon C400. Being smaller, having a flip out screen, battery life included, blah, blah, blah. So in short, this is basically why I returned the Canon C400. I just didn't feel like I get the most value out of it, because I felt like having a smaller camera could be more beneficial, especially like you saw the opening shot where I just mounted it to a frying pan. That would have been a lot harder with the Canon C400 opposed to a stripped down Canon R5C. So then my next idea was the Canon C80, because it's basically the Canon C400 just in a different form factor with a couple less I/O points and features like the Canon RAW, which are rarely used anyway. So I figured, okay, this might be the perfect camera for me right now. And then when I thought about buying it, I had the Canon R5C, which is basically pretty similar to the Canon C80. It has a little less dynamic range, and it also doesn't have internal ND filters, and there's not great cable management, blah blah blah. It doesn't have an SDI out. So there's a lot of annoying things about the Canon R5C. But just filming myself here for YouTube, do I really want to spend $5,000–6,000 on a Canon C80 that has basically the same features that the Canon R5C already has? So for now, I decided to stay with the Canon R5C, and whenever I am on a commercial shoot, I'm just going to rent the Canon C400 or the Canon C80 depending on what the job needs. And if I'm on bigger sets, I'm just probably still going to use the Red Komodo X. Not my Red Komodo X, because I sold it about a year ago, but I feel like when you show up on set, everyone and their mother currently has a Red Komodo X. I've literally had situations where I showed up on set and the director of photography, as well as the first AC, they all owned a Red Komodo X. Heck, the makeup artist probably films her makeup tutorials on a Red Komodo X for all I know. So for this, I feel like if I'm really on a big budget shoot, multiple days, big cruise, I might as well just rent the Red for the extra bit of image quality over the Canon C400. But for everything else, the Canon C400 is an amazing camera. We just shot a commercial recently for a pizzeria, and that was perfectly fine using the Canon C400. We actually had a stripped down crew. Usually I like to have a dedicated focus puller and then an assistant, etc, etc. For this I decided to just go with the autofocus. For about 95% of the shots, we shot everything on a gimbal except for some odd product shots, but that the Canon C400 is perfect for. But to be totally fair, for this the Canon C80 is even better because it just fits nicer on a gimbal, and if you shoot everything on a gimbal, why would you need a Canon C400 anyway? So from my standpoint, I felt like yes, if you upgrade from the Canon R5C to the Canon C400 or the Canon C80, there is definitely a level up in production quality. But going from the Canon C80 to the Canon C400, I didn't really see any raise in production quality. Where I did see a raise in production quality on all of my videos, and I've been seeing this for years, is when using plugins from Motion VFX. I've been using Motion VFX for 8 years now, and I used to purchase individual plugins and templates often because I only needed one really cool effect of it and then rarely used it again. Now with the new subscription-based Cine Studio and Design Studio, I have all the plugins, effects and templates available to me at all times. And I can access them right from within my editor. For the intro scene, I wanted a message effect that I can also track in 3D space, as my shot was moving. So here I used the M-Tracker 3D plugin to track my shot in 3D space. Then I browsed through all the elements and added a text overlay, turned it into a YouTube comment, and that's it. Super easy. So for several years, there literally hasn't been a single video I put out that doesn't include several Motion VFX plugins and effects. Like the M-Storyboard plugin I used to demonstrate lighting techniques, or something as simple as cinematic titles for intros and credits. I used this on our most recent short film, for example. If you want to start leveling up your production value and get access to tons of plugins and effects, check out Motion VFX via the link in the description below. So now let's get back to the Canon C400 because this is what the video is all about, and I will just give you a quick review of my experience with the Canon C400. Let's start with the form factor. As I've already stated, I love the form factor, and when I was still doing a lot of commercial work as well as high-end documentaries, I couldn't have wished for any better form factor than the Canon C400, because just with an adapter plate you can just hook up a V-mount battery and then you can power all of your accessories. You have so many buttons that you can customize to your liking, so you can quickly operate the camera even without all the fancy touchscreen monitor stuff, because I never used the touchscreen monitor on my Canon C200, 300, 500, and I wouldn't have used it on the Canon C400 either. I like having an external monitor, a 7-inch, and I don't need any touchscreen features on it because, again, you have so many customizable buttons that you can quickly access everything you need without having to use the monitor at all. Also, having a full frame RF mount is absolutely amazing because now I can adapt all of my lenses to it. Doesn't matter if it's PL, EF, RF, and if I want to shoot anamorphic or anything really, I can just shoot with the Canon C400. And this was the one thing that I was really looking forward to. And having the internal ND filters is absolutely amazing. When shooting on the Red Komodo X, that was one of the biggest things that I missed all of the times. Now let's talk about image quality, because this is one thing that I have a somewhat controversial take on, because I feel the image quality on all of these current cameras is good enough, and it really doesn't matter. Yes, the Canon R5C lacks in dynamic range, and that is something that you can sometimes see in the footage, but it really depends on what you shoot. If you're just out shooting run and gun stuff, then you might see a difference between the Canon R5C and a Red Komodo X or a Canon C400. Whereas when I'm shooting myself indoors, or even if I have a set where I light everything myself, etc., you will not see a difference in image quality between the Canon R5C and many other cameras that cost 2 or 3 times as much. So here, image quality wasn't really a big deciding factor. I did miss having the Red RAW codecs and just being able to just manipulate everything in post to my liking. But then again, it's not that far off. And you can use Canon RAW, which I never really liked, to be honest, that much, because I'm also using Final Cut Pro, so I wasn't really able to manipulate the RAW settings. But the image quality coming out of the Canon C400 is great. It's good enough. Like we said, I just shot a commercial on it, and I bet you all of my equipment that the client could not tell that we are using a Canon camera this time, whereas we used a Red camera the last time we shot for them. They will not be able to see a difference in image quality for their project at all. If we want to pixel peep, and a lot of us want to pixel peep, then I would have to say that I still probably prefer the image coming out of the Canon C70 and the Canon C300 Mark III, because the DGO sensor just felt a little bit more organic, if you will, whereas the Canon C400 looked a little bit more like the Canon R5C, which does have a little bit of a digital feel to it sometimes, or at least it needs a bit more tweaking than I felt the Canon C70 or the Canon C300 Mark III did. And speaking of tweaking camera footage, all of the footage that you see here, may it be from the Red Komodo X, the R5C or the Canon C400, is graded with my custom LUT packs, and they were created with Canon cameras in mind, but they work perfectly fine on all other cameras as well. And if you're interested in them, then check them out. Link is in the description below. So there you have it. This was my quick and dirty rundown of why I returned the Canon C400, which is purely to my personal reasons and the circumstances in which I need a camera right now, and my little dirty review of the Canon C400. And to summarize, I love the Canon C400. It's basically everything that I want in a camera if I were to do a lot of mid-client tier level commercial work projects, whereas I'm not doing these right now. So for YouTube, I think there's better cameras out there like the Canon C80, but if I was still doing these jobs, then the Canon C400 would be the perfect camera for it, and I don't think it has any real competition right now. The fact that you can shoot an entire client project on it using autofocus only with a minimal crew, but if you want to use it on bigger sets, you can just build it out and rig it up just the way you like it and use manual lenses with all the support that you need, makes it the most flexible camera that I have ever used, especially having a full frame RF mount that you can easily adapt to EF or PL lenses as well. Alright, I hope you liked this really raw, quick and dirty video about the Canon C400, and you know what to do. Like, subscribe, all the things. And I hope to see you on the next one.